Okay, I'm going to show you guys today how I do an evaluation for pump rifles for pellets, to put them through their paces and find out, exactly how they perform in a certain rifle. Now, every rifle is going to be different, but I'm just going to show you a procedure that I go through. You might have different procedures than me, but I like to go through routines and stick to it like a religion. So that way, everything's consistent all the time. So before I get started, I want to tell you how I prepare for an accuracy test for pellets. The first thing I do with the Crossman is I open it up and where the pump mechanism is, and I give it 1 drop of oil. And what I do is for every 50 shots, and I do count the shots, I'll put like 1 drop of oil. And what this does is that makes it consistent with its velocity so that the velocity does not change as much. And the second thing I do is when I'm pumping, I make sure the time of the pumps is equal. For instance, if you pump the rifle fast and then pump it slow, you're going to have different velocities. So you want to pump it. What I would do is extend the pump 1 time, let the air get in, and then close it. So take a little more time for your pumps. Don't pump too fast. Otherwise, that air can't get in there. I like to clean the barrel before the test. Make sure you start off with a clean barrel to give the pellet a fair chance so there's not a bunch of crud in there. So it can't prove to you that it's the right pellet for you. The fourth thing I like to do is have a comfortable bench rest setup. If you're not comfortable and your rifle is not steady, you're not going to be able to find out how accurate your rifle is. So this was done indoors, 15 yards, so I don't have to worry about wind drift or anything like that. Okay, now that part's done, I want to talk to you about pellet condition. On this test, I was testing out some cheaper pellets, which are about $5.50 for 500. They're the H&N plinking pellets, 7.48 grain. They're wad cutters. Typically, what I do with wad cutters, if they're very cheap, what I do is for pellet condition right here, if you look at this, what I do is I check for dented skirts. I check for diameter and stuff like that. And sometimes I'll check for weight. Another thing I'll do is I'll sort, pellets, just kind of look at them and just look for seams and stuff. And sometimes I'll wash all the pellets. I don't really size the pellets that much. Sometimes I'll push them through another 177 barrel. But I found that these cheaper batches of pellets that I'm buying, that it didn't make any difference if I size them or not. With weighing, sometimes you get a little bit advantage, if you weigh your pellets. Make sure you have a really good scale because some cheaper scales, have a plus or minus in grain weight, and it might throw you off a little bit. You might think that something weighs, 7.48 grains, and it might only weigh 7.3 something. So you have to make sure you get a proper scale and sort them out the best you can. You don't have to be perfect. And besides, if you have 2 different weights in pellets, you still have to have the right diameter or size. So you have to take out all them variables, and that's very difficult to do sometimes. Another thing you could do is use some lubes, or like oil, like a household oil, or you can do what I do, use Napier if you want to use that, or Gamo has some pellet spray at Pyramid Air's website that you can just spray it a couple times, and the pellets, like say maybe 100 rounds or something like that. I would use very little lube. You don't really need that much because the first pellet that gets shot has a little bit of lube in the skirt, and it's going to lube the rest of the barrel as the first pellet goes out. So you really don't need that much lube. If you look at the pellet and it's just got kind of a wet look, that should be fine. You don't need to over lube your pellets. I wanted to talk to you about pellets too. Generally, cheap pellets usually have quality control to some degree, but it's just their basic quality control. The best pellets have the best quality control usually. And the difference in price between these two is you can get for $5 or 500, you can get cheaper pellets, and for say like starting around, I'd say about maybe $12 or $15 on up, you can get some really good quality pellets. Now, sometimes you'll find that the cheap pellets shoot just as good as the more expensive, higher quality pellets, but you just don't want to do, a cheap little two, three shot group test and then say that, the cheap pellet is better than, the higher quality pellets. You have to actually shoot the whole tin, to find out the consistency of the rifle, because if you shoot the whole tin, you're going to find out how that pellet performs. Like, for instance, when I compared RWS basic pellets, their 7-grain pellets, to some good quality wad cutters that I had, I found out that I could get away, with some cheaper pellets sometimes, for accuracy. Now you're going to have a couple flyers that can't be helped, but at least you're going to get a good percentage of, sometimes even what a match grade pellet will do. So I wanted to talk to you too about stages of your barrel. When you first clean the barrel, you have a cold bore, and this, I know you've heard this in rifles and stuff, but it applies to air guns also. The bore is cold. You haven't pumped it or anything, so nothing's warmed up yet. So your first shot is going to be right here. Then what happens is over time, your barrel gets fouled a little bit with lead. And somewhere in between the fouling and not being too dirty, but, having a little bit of crud in it, right in here is the sweet zone. This is the zone where most of your pellets are going to hit smack on. So when you have a clean barrel, your pellets aren't going to always be smack on. It depends on your rifle. All rifles are different for these zones. Some Lothar Walther barrels, sometimes them things will have a longer sweet zone because they don't get as dirty as other barrels do. So there are some better barrels out there, but I'm just talking generally speaking for most air rifles. You're going to have shots. Let's say this is shot number 1 and this is shot number 100 or 200 or 300, whatever you want to call it. During the time, you're going to notice that you're going to have some really accurate shots somewhere in the middle. And then at the end, you're going to find that your accuracy is starting to fall off. And this corresponds to your mil dot adjustments. When you find yourself adjusting your mil dot, right around here, it's going really good for you for a while, because you've fired a few shots and you've given the barrel a chance to warm up and everything. And then all of a sudden, after say like 100, 200 shots, you start noticing that you always got to adjust your turret all the time. Well, that's because your barrel is finally starting to get a little bit dirty. So that's what I put in this line here. So between the whole entire cycle of your 50 to 100, 200, 300, whatever you want to say for your shots, between that whole cycle, you are going to have to sometimes adjust your scope and click values and stuff like that. And the other thing is from here to here, there is human error. So what percentage of human error is in there? I have no idea. But let me show you a quick little trick that I do. Is some people will say, well, when do I adjust my scope for clicks and how many clicks do I do it? Well, here's what happens. Let's say you're shooting a 1/4 inch circle like this. And let's say that, all 3 of them are getting hit, but they're getting hit on the bottom. Well, there's a trend there. You can tell that there's a trend going on where you're accurate, but you're always hitting on the bottom here. So what you want to do is go up about a click or whatever you think you feel you need to do and get it back on 0 again. But always have 2 or 3 shots to verify that you need to change your click value, because if you just have one that goes down here and you start messing with your click values, it might not guarantee that it goes here. It might go up here. So always have 2 to 3 shots to verify the fact that you have to adjust your clicks. So now that this part is out of the way, I wanted to show you the first step, after you get prepped, for your accuracy test. The first step you want to do is you want to take a 10-shot group. Now this is after you've warmed up with a few shots first. Take a 10-shot group. I believe in tens because 10 shows consistency. Now, if you just did a 3-shot group, yeah, you're going to have a really nice small little group there. But you want to do it in tens, so that way, if you're doing shooting, that way you get an idea of if I had to shoot 10 times, what size target will I hit 100% of the time? So what you do is you take a stencil like this. I bought this at a craft store, and it's got the dimensions listed on it. It's got the fractions, and it also has got the decimal values. So after you're done shooting your 10-shot group, you put the circle up to it. And whatever circle matches, what you do is you make 10 of these circles now. Now what you're going to do with the circles is you're going to fire one shot into these circles 10 times. So let me show you how I did it here. And you could do a 3-shot warm-up like I did here. Even though you shot a 10-shot group, you still want to take some dots and do a warm-up and see where your zero's at. Now, with pellets that aren't perfectly accurate at 15 yards, you're not going to have a perfect zero, but you can kind of tell where they're going. So anyway, you want to take the 10-shot group, and then you want to have a couple practice circles before you call it official. So it's almost like you're being challenged for a test. So anyway, let me show you what I did. So based off the corresponding groups, I found that 875 would be a proper circle to start with for my shots. So I fired 10 shots and I got 100%. So 10 out of 10. Okay. Now we've established the fact that we could get this kind of accuracy because it's repeating itself over and over again. So that's called consistency. I love consistency. So what we do is we push away the point at 875. We drop down to the stencil circle that says 750. And we do the test over again. You can see I passed this one with 100%. So I'm not trying to hit the center of the circle. I'm trying to hit the circle. Now, a lot of guys will say, well, why can't you just use your click values and move it down here? You could, but you have to remember that the pellet isn't perfectly accurate. In a real world, if the pellet was 100% accurate and it went in the same hole every time, then you would have a perfect zero. So here we got 750. So I thought, well, let's take it a step further. Let's go down a little smaller here. So I finally started making some mistakes down at a 1/2 inch or 0.500. So anyway, once again, this is at 15 yards, and this pellet is the Plinking H&N pellet, 7.48 grain. And what I want to show you guys, I'd recommend you guys doing some shooting just like this. It's wonderful. I learned some of this from people online. I kind of took everybody's philosophies and styles of shooting and kind of mixed my own style in with it. If you look here, these are some shots that I was taking with the Crosman 2100 where there was actually more accuracy than, say, 0.50 or 1/2 inch. These are 1/4 inch dots right here, or circles. So this pellet here was more accurate than this pellet. This pellet here was my R10s, 7 grains. So, and you can see that my practice shots on here, I fired a whole bunch of shots, and you can see that a lot of them I did hit, and then some of them I missed. So once again, human error involved there. And my shot count, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We got about 30 shots in there. So I didn't notice any major, thing where I had to adjust my click value. But like I was telling you guys before, let me get that sheet again, is during your shooting, you have to be aware of this. During your shooting, there's a cycle. If this was a graph and you took one shot and you lined up all 50 or 100 shots in a row, this is what you'd see. Your first shot is a little high, and then they start gradually going down because the barrel's getting fouled. Then you got your sweet zone where it's flat shooting. You know, all your shots are perfectly dead center. And then a dirty barrel, the accuracy drops off. So some people blame pellets for everything, but I would do a good test. I would recommend doing the whole entire tin so that you can find out how the pellet's performing for you. And then also, I just wanted to remind you guys once again, is you want to go, if you want to, you could go through this procedure here where you check your pellets for different things like that, and you know, the different variables that could cause you to have shots that won't go where you want them to go. Now, when I did this test here with these, I did not wash them, I did not sort them, I did not weigh them, I didn't do anything to the pellets. I just pulled them right out of the tin. So this is the accuracy you can expect without doing your own sorting or anything like that. From the factory, you should be able to expect some reasonable quality. If you pay good money for pellets, you can expect them to send you pellets with not dented skirts or anything like that. So you can expect some quality when you pay a lot. So, but anyway, once again, remember, 1 drop of oil for, say, like 50 shots or whatever you prefer. Your pump, when you open up the pump, you want to make sure you get equal time as far as when the pump is closed. If you pump too fast, you're going to not allow the air to get in there, to rush in there, and stuff like that. So, and also, I would just want to add one more thing. If you're outside, you want the rifle to adjust to the temperature, the current temperature that you're in. So you want to let the rifle rest for about 5 minutes in a hot environment, just so it kind of gets to the same temperature as the outside. That way your scope adjustments and stuff like that aren't going to be a little off. So with temperature, expansion and contraction, it happens to everything. So including pellets and scopes and everything, they're going to move on you. So you want to double check your adjustments and your screws and stuff like that. Now, if we had a spring piston rifle, we'd have to really double check that scope to make sure it's not sliding back on us and stuff like that. So anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. So once again, shoot if you can. I know some of you guys can't afford it, but I can't always afford it myself. But if you can, it's good to shoot the whole tin, if you can, just to get an idea of how it's working for you. And that's one of the reasons why the RWS Basic 7-grain pellets were so successful, is because of the fact that the people that were doing competition shooting and stuff like that started shooting sets of 20 or something like that. Like they do like five sets, 4 times, stuff like that. And they'd be able, over time, to find out what the pellet was doing. And they thought to themselves, wow, this is a pretty good pellet, because it's coming close to some of these match grade pellets, but it's only $8 for 500 compared to the entry level pellets that were the R10s at, what were they, about $15.99 or something like that. So anyway, if you guys have any ideas, you can share with me, but I think this is a cool way to do things. I like being consistent, and I like going through a routine. So doing everything the same way, and oiling, counting every single shot, being accountable for every single shot that you take. And also you want to save these for your records. Sometimes I'll snap a picture of them and save them in my computer, or sometimes I'll run them over a scanner or something like that. So I literally have a history on this particular pellet now that I can go back as an archive, and I can look and see where I went wrong, where I went right, what kind of changes I need to make. And this is some of the things I'm discussing you today, or discussing with you today, is things that champion field target shooters use, but they don't always tell people what they do. The key is taking out all of the variables that you possibly can when you're shooting. And there is a lot of variables, that you could have. The variable of you doing something wrong, your scope, your rifle, the pellet, uh, the the environment. There's so many things to consider, but just do the best you can and form a routine and always be willing to learn new things, both from other people, and you can even throw in a couple of things that you discovered for yourself. So when you learn from everybody and you put all that together, you got a big tool bag that you can use, to get things done because you've listened to everybody and you've kind of filtered out, what things will work for you and what things won't. So, but anyway, thank you very much for watching the video. I think it's cool. If you guys want to, you can use these circle stencils. There's different ways of doing things, but these are kind of cool because you can get a little bit more technical with your shots with this thing. And when you're out in the field, you can just slide it over like this. You don't have to use, machine shop calipers. I used to work in a machine shop, and when I see people measuring shot groups with calipers, I'm like, oh my gosh, is this a machine shop or what? Thousandths of an inch. My shots were a thousandths of an inch better than yours, and that kind of thing. But here's the thing: anybody can shoot like this. What it comes down to is a person that's willing to learn, learn the trigger and learn all these variables and get out all these variables. So once you do all that, there's really no secret or anything. Some of these field target guys say that they just take out all the variables they possibly can. So they're basically experts in variables, and that's how you get better and better and better. And as far as the Crosman 2100, I can tell you by experience and by shooting, hundreds and hundreds of rounds, that this one will keep up with the Daisy 853, with the Daisy 953, and them target rifles, them entry level competition target rifles. It will keep up if you give it the proper lube and the proper pellet and stuff like that. So it's a mighty fine pumper. I didn't think it would be this good until I tested it, and I did own one decades ago, but I never did any testing decades ago. I just tried to get a reasonable zero and just started shooting. But nowadays I'm going more technical. I want to find out, how I can make a rifle more accurate, even if it's considered not to be an accurate rifle. So anyway, thank you very much for watching, you guys. I probably talked too much about this stuff, but I just want to get you guys filled in on some information that I've learned and that I use, when I'm shooting and stuff. But thank you very much for watching.